Hi everyone, this is our Spartan Track and Field preseason meeting. I'll be telling you a little bit about some practice protocols, what we know about competitions, and some other information that would be useful to know before our season begins on Monday, March 1st. Both the boys and the girls track and field programs have purpose statements, and I would encourage you to pause for a moment to read each of them. Here's our coaching staff for the upcoming spring season. We have our boys head coach, who is Coach Gary Mayu, and my name is Keith Lehman. I'm the head girls coach for the track and field program this spring. So take a moment, pause this video, take a look at who we have for our event coaches. You'll see a lot of returning people, and we do have a couple of new names as well. One thing I will point out is here at North High, if you're in grades 9 through 12, a good contact person would be myself for the girls and Coach Mayu for the boys. And at Ben Franklin, our two coaching staff that are in the building at Ben Franklin are Ryan Gravelin and Skip Fisher. So they would be very useful to contact if you need something in the building. So a couple of things to keep in mind this season. Of course, last spring we dealt with the devastation of having to cut our season short due to COVID-19. And 1 year later, we're kind of still in that same place, a little different situation. We know more, but COVID-19 is still there. So a couple of things to keep in mind as we progress through the season. We are most certainly going to have to make changes and modifications to plans as needed. And we're optimistic and hopeful for a season to be as close to normal as possible. But we do expect that we'll have to make modifications as the season goes on. So even the plan that I outlined today, just know that there may be modifications as we learn more, as things happen, as we move into our season. We do have some required forms that need to be taken care of as soon as possible. And the first most time-sensitive one is the athletic physical. So you'll want to see your doctor as soon as possible if you don't have one of these on file. If you had a physical in the 2019-2020 school year, then you actually only need to fill out a Form B, and I can send that out in a PDF in this email as well. And this is something that is needed before you can practice. So that, like I said, is probably the most time-sensitive document we need to have taken care of. Another document is the HIPAA form, which can be found on PowerSchool. And what that form allows is for coaches to communicate with the athletic trainers if there is any injury that occurs throughout the season. The third option or third item that we need is the co-curricular fee, which can also be paid and taken care of on PowerSchool. And this needs to be paid prior to receiving a uniform in order to compete. And of course, we do have that waiver option available. You can talk to one of the head coaches or talk to Della in the office or a counselor at school. And then, of course, we do have that co-curricular meeting. It's not for everybody, but it's grades 7 and 9 that need to do that, and that can be accessed on PowerSchool, and there's a registration form there. As we progress through the spring, we really want to make sure that health and safety are our #1 priority. Unfortunately, we've had some programs here at North High that have been negatively impacted. So really our goal is that we want to make it through the season, throughout the whole spring, with as minimal of an impact as possible. So of course you should bring a mask to practice. You'll be coming from school, so you should have one of those on hand. But masks should be worn anytime that we have practice sessions indoors, as well as anytime that we are doing non-vigorous practice exercises. And your coaches will be really good about reminding you about when a mask is appropriate and when you can take it off. We would also ask if we take a bus anywhere that you also wear a mask during that bus ride. And also, anytime that you're in the locker room changing before or after practice, you should wear a mask in there as well. The one situation where we are okay with you removing your mask is if we're doing any vigorous outdoor exercises. So a couple of things that come to mind are speed workouts at the track or maybe longer runs for our distance crew. But like I said, our coaching staff will be really good about clarifying when the mask should and should not be worn. A little bit more about practices this season. First and foremost, if you are experiencing any of the symptoms of COVID-19 listed on the right side here, we really would like that like you to maybe take a day off of practice, just be in communication with us about that. We really is greater than me. So if it happens to be the case that you come down with COVID-19, of course we don't want that, but we definitely don't want to make sure that's spreading to the rest of the team. So if you're having any of the symptoms, please be honest, let us know, and then hopefully we can get you back as soon as possible. We would also encourage you to avoid becoming complacent or relaxed with any of our health precautions that we've set out. The more adamant we are about our precautions, the sooner that we can get back to a more normal situation. One note here is that public water fountains are not operating. We do have our water bottle fillers, but the actual water fountains are not in operation. So if you want to have a water bottle on hand, that might be a good idea. Also, when waiting for practice to begin, I know it's very tempting to crowd up with your friends and talk with them, how the school day's gone, all that stuff. But please try to do your best to observe social distancing in that situation. Also, if you are going to enter the building at any time, whether it's after a practice or as you're coming from your car to start practice, make sure that you have a mask on. And finally, locker rooms are going to be available, but you should bring your own lock if you want to utilize them. If you have a Phi Ed locker, you can still use that instead of the varsity locker room, but just make sure that you have a lock of your own. So throughout the season, we would like to stay in really close communication with both parents and athletes. So we've set up some tools to help athletes know what to expect at practices. And our hope is that this will improve efficiency and cut down on any potential spread of COVID-19 that might arise. So one of those tools is a weekly planner. For those who are here at Fargo North, we use Edu-Cal as our planning tool, and it's very similar to that, little more pared down, not as fancy as what Edu-Cal is. But what this will do is it will outline daily plans for each event group. And the goal is to have a set plan about 2 weeks in advance. Of course, things come up, so that is subject to change. And it is an editable document by the coaches, but you will have a viewable link to that. We also have an event group practice schedule, and this outlines what special events will be meeting and at what times. And I've got some examples of what these look like on the following slides. This first document is the practice schedule by coach. And really our goal with this is that Monday through Friday, there would be a little more predictability in terms of what specific event groups would be meeting on each day. Now, if you look at, for example, the distance kids, they will be meeting every single day because they're kind of a specialized group. Very few of them will do any events outside of the distance events. But for example, jumps and throws and hurdles and pole vault, those are often events that are done in conjunction with other events. So our goal here is really just to cut down on any transition time, some questioning of where you should be and when. And we will outline this more specifically in our next document that we have here. But go ahead and pause this, take a look at this, and this is a general guideline of what the practice schedule will look like each week. In addition to that more general practice schedule that I showed you on the previous slide, I will be sending out a link to this document, which will tell in particular what each event group will be doing on each day of practice. Hopefully this adds a little bit more predictability to practices. Athletes will know exactly what they'll be doing from one day to the next. You'll notice here that I do have a blank document. This is just kind of a skeleton version of what it would look like. Because our first 2 weeks are going to look a little bit different for a number of reasons, and I'll talk about that next. But just know in the coming weeks, when we get more on a regular practice schedule, I will be sending out a link to this document that you can view and have a better idea of what's going to be happening at practice. So a couple of notes about starting off the season. Of course, going into a spring sport, you hope that it's going to be nice springy weather, but oftentimes we start in more of a winter weather situation. So once the weather permits, we would like to get outside. Until then, spacing out indoors is going to be our safest option. We will group up by event rather than meeting as a large group, and each group will have their own warm-up and assignment for the day, and attendance will be taken by the event coach of each group. In order to balance limited gym space and our large numbers, we also might assign you to work in the weight room or at your own home space, have some plan outlined for you until we can get fully outdoors. And this will hopefully only be a temporary step until winter sports finish up or the weather outside improves. And more information on this will be sent out if it needs to be utilized. We do have a lot of new athletes in the program, and we're really excited to have you. So maybe you're wondering what you should bring to practice. Probably the most important piece of equipment that we have is adequate footwear for your event. So whether you're running, jumping, throwing, it is really important that you have a good pair of running shoes or jumping shoes, something that you're comfortable having some activity in. We would urge you to not use the same pair of shoes that you've been walking around at school all day in. That really wears them down. So try to have a pair of shoes that you can wear just for track and field. Also, depending on the weather, bring some shorts and sweatpants and a t-shirt, and bring clothing that's appropriate for going outdoors. You may not go outdoors every day, but we want you to show up to practice ready to go outdoors every day. And of course, it's better to have too much clothing and not use it than to have too little and be shivering all day at practice. And then the last thing is that if you want a water bottle, you could bring that as well. In regards to competition for the season, I wish I had more information at this point, but there are still many unknown details. We do know for sure, though, that there's not going to be an indoor season. Now, this might seem like a negative thing, but I feel in the past seasons we've kind of felt rushed, only having 2 weeks to prepare for our first competition. So hopefully this will allow us an opportunity to work on more of those fundamental things at practice and not feel so rushed at the beginning of our season. Competition dates are going to be dependent on weather, and I will send out some updates as soon as we learn more information about what those specific dates and times will be. Just know that with every other activity, we've seen spectator limitations. That might be the case here as well in track and field, but none have been publicized at this point. We do know that the EDC track meet will be held in Grand Forks, and that'll be on Friday, May 21st. And then the following week and weekend, the state track meet will be in Bismarck on the 28th and 29th of May. We do have some expectations for all of our athletes throughout the season. First off, if you think that or know that you're going to be gone, you should communicate absences with us in advance. Also, we would like you to have some fresh workout clothes each day. We don't have showers in our locker rooms available for you, so make sure that you have some fresh workout clothes. Also, because you are a student athlete and not an athlete student, student has to come first. We want to make sure that you're keeping up with your schooling. We do have grade checks every 3 weeks, so we want to make sure that you remain eligible throughout the season. We also want you to get to know all of your teammates and respect each of them. Obviously, in a track and field season, we have a lot of people on the team, so do your best to get around and get to know everybody. Also, communicate with any of your coaches, whether it's the head coaches or your event coaches, if you're experiencing any excessive pain or discomfort from practice. We do have training staff on site, so we can get you into a trainer if needed. Also, if you're somebody who's running on the road at any time, we want you to make sure you have an awareness of running routes and traffic safety. Also know that you're going to be representing your team and yourself appropriately, both in and out of practice, and show up each day and truly do your best. One thing that we take a lot of pride in is that a lot of our coaching staff also happen to be educators. So we are a high school co-curricular program, and we do feel like there's an educational component to what we do. Think of it as life as the lesson, track and field is simply the medium of teaching that lesson. Every athlete on our program is going to start somewhere, and our hope is that relative growth is made throughout each season. So we all have a starting point. We just want to see growth from that starting point for each athlete. And we want you to grow, have fun, and form friendships, and take pride in being a Spartan track and field team member. The last thing I'll include here is our first week of practice plan. Weeks 1 and 2 in particular are going to be our most challenging with regards to conflicts with gym space and other space availability. So what we're going to do is an A-B rotation, and it will be first dependent on if you are in one of the 5 following groups. So the first group is distance runners, second group is pole vault / hurdlers, the third group is jumpers, fourth group is sprinters, and fifth group is the throwers. And of course, it's likely that you're going to be in multiple groups throughout the season, but what we want you to do is pick your primary event. So if you said your primary event was a distance runner, you would say, I'm going to be with the distance running group. If you're a sprinter primarily, you would be in the sprinting group. And we are going to do an A-B rotation where on day 1, so on Monday, March 1st, the distance runners, the pole vault hurdlers, and the jumps people will be at practice. And on that day, we'll be getting our lockers, and we will be also going to our event trials so that we can see maybe there's another event that you could excel in throughout the season. For those other groups, the sprinters and throwers on Monday, you are going to be doing your weight room walkthrough. So the sprinters, you will be in the weight room with Coach Cox from 4 to 4:30. And the throwers, you'll be in there from 4:30 to 5. And then we'll have a coach on staff there to take attendance. So on Tuesday, we're going to flip those 2 groups. So sprinters and throwers, you will be at practice with us, and you will be doing your event trials at that time. And for the distance, pole vault hurdlers, and jumpers on Tuesday, you will be doing your walkthrough of the weight room. We've got distance runners from 4 to 4:30, and then pole vault hurdlers and jumpers from 4:30 to 5. So my plan is to elaborate a little more in depth about this when I send out the email, but just know that that's our general plan for the first 2 days. And then from that point forward, we're going to continue this A-B rotation. So distance, pole vault hurdlers, and jumpers, you will be there at practice on Wednesday as well as Friday. And then our sprinters and throwers, you will be there on Thursday. And then our plan for next week, the second week of practice, would be to flip these and continue that A-B rotation. And just know that if you are in a group that isn't necessarily meeting at practice, your event coaches may have some assignment, whether it's in the weight room or some mileage that you should be putting on or some exercises you should be doing on your own. We will provide some structure on your days that you're not actually at practice. So to end, we really are looking forward to an awesome spring season. We can't wait to meet each of you in person starting in just a week. Anytime that you have questions, please feel free to shoot us an email. We do check our email quite often. So my name, Keith Lehman. Like I said, I'm a teacher here at North, so I'm on my email pretty often. There's my email address. And then Coach Mayu is also really great about checking his email. So there's his address. Otherwise, we really look forward to meeting you on March 1st. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions in the meantime.